I went to an interesting seminar a few years ago. It was free and they had a whole bunch of different speakers. Each speaker would present for an hour or so, and then when they were done, they would try and upsell some kind of home study course in the back of the room. One guy started talking and he used this Russian doll as kind of a prop. And as he kept talking, he kept opening up this big Russian doll and then pulling out a smaller doll that was on the inside. I've always been fascinated with fractal patterns. They haven't been around for a long time. I think they were created or invented or discovered back in the 70s. A simple example would be to start off with a triangle, and then on each side of the triangle you put another triangle that's half as big as the side, so you end up with something that kind of looks like a Star of David, but without the lines crossing. It would be one continuous line on the outside. And then you continue putting smaller and smaller triangles on the outside until you get an infinite number of smaller and smaller triangles. If you do this an infinite amount of time, you'll get a fractal where you can zoom in on the edge, and no matter how much you zoom in, you'll keep seeing the same pattern repeat over and over again. An easy way to persuade somebody is to leverage their criteria. Not just the surface level criteria, but their higher order criteria. Like if somebody is buying a car, one of their surface level criteria might be safety, the safety features of the car. But if you ask about their higher order criteria, it might be the safety of their family, to know that their family is safe while they are driving the car. And if you get them to talk about an even higher level criteria, it might be that they value their relationships with their family. One way to look at these higher level criteria is these intangible things that we are trying to support with our lower level tangible criteria, the things we are trying to accomplish, the physical things we want to purchase. Before humans evolved rational, self-aware minds, we were like all other animals. Never-ending desires to stay safe, get enough food, and to reproduce. But now with our conscious minds, we have these deep instinctive desires and our consciously expressed desires. One powerful proxy that served as a very necessary ancient currency after we developed our conscious awareness, but before we developed complicated large societies, was social status. The idea of getting social status allowed everybody to compete to see who was the most productive, to see who could kill the largest animal and get the most needed calories for the tribe. Those that were the most productive, those that killed the biggest animals, they had the most social status. Those that had the most social status had the most sex. Consequently, every new generation was produced largely by the members of the previous generation that were the most productive. Very much an ancient Pareto principle. The top 20% of every tribe was responsible for 80% of the productivity. They got 80% of the sex, and they had 80% of the children of the next generation. This means the most common deep instinctive desire in all humans is a desire to achieve real social status, to accomplish great things, to get great rewards, to create fantastic ideas and get massive social validation, to solve huge problems and earn tons of money. The problem with leveraging this higher level criteria is that it requires that people have a conscious understanding of their own higher level criteria. It also requires that people be willing to talk about their higher level criteria with a complete stranger, something that doesn't always happen. The cool thing about fractals, modern fractals with modern computers, is if you can get a pretty decent computer-generated fractal, you can zoom in on the edge 1 billion times and keep seeing the same pattern repeat over and over again. Probably the most famous example of this, the most famous modern fractal, of which you can find plenty of fantastic high-resolution videos on YouTube, is one called the Mandelbrot set. Another cool thing about fractals is that they have a finite area but an infinite circumference, which means the area of the shape inside is finite, but the line going around the outside of the fractal is infinitely long. Finally, the guy got to the very tiniest Russian doll, and inside was a red diamond. Not a metaphorical blood diamond, but a literal red diamond. Very rare and very expensive. This guy was a diamond broker, and he specialized in finding families that had these very, very expensive family heirlooms, but didn't realize how expensive they were. Then he would broker them, and they would both make a ton of money. His metaphor is that if you can find the hidden treasure that exists inside all people, you can motivate them to do great things. You might have to keep looking deeper and deeper inside of them. But like in his set of Russian dolls, if you keep looking, you'll eventually find the treasure.